Da 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 da. What's my good cheer? I can do better than that. Da 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 da. What's my good cheer? Welcome, everybody. Let's give YouTube a couple of minutes, get those notifications out, let people know I've gone live. In the meantime, if you've never met me before, hi, I'm Cindy. I explore the inside and the outside. And, we go through seasons in our lives where we spend more time on the inside than we do on the outside. And if you really look at this day and age that we live in, we do technically spend a lot more time on the inside, whether it's playing video games, doing our 9 to 5 job, lots of times that we get so wrapped up in the interior of our lives. And when I say the interior of our lives, I don't mean in here or in here. I mean in here. We're not spending enough time connecting with the real world. You know, Lots of times I think I'm a little bit silly. I'm a bit of a tree hugger, but I have this understanding for myself that everything is living. Everything is movement and energy. And not only that, I really do feel that plants and trees, shrubs, even the dirt is alive and even speaks and has feelings. And it's a different species than we are. And an oak tree is different than a spruce tree or a rose. But if you look at that kind of in a reflection of a different nationality, right, that there would be so many different languages spoken by plants. I am a bit of a tree hugger. I understand for myself that trees are so rooted and connected to each other. And if you don't know, I'm from Winnipeg, Manitoba, and last week we were voted the most air polluted place in the entire world. We are struggling, maybe not so bad this week, but we have been really struggling with wildfires. And it came to my mind that maybe, the trees are feeling that they're absorbing the smoke into their own systems. And it might be frightening to them, right? That their own kind is struggling and suffering. And in that speech and in that interconnectedness of being rooted to each other, how fast does that message, if at all, gets passed amongst them? So I kind of took it upon myself to do a little tree hugging, a little bit of consoling the trees. And for lots of people, they might find that a little bit unique, a little bit silly, even, right? But that's okay because in my own mind, it makes me feel better. It feels like possibly I'm able to connect and I'm able to contribute, right? Not everybody gets me. It really does take all kinds to make the world. But I was connecting to the trees and I was just putting my hand on the trees and I'm just saying, yeah, we got some fires going on, but you're safe. It's not going to be coming into the city. And we're doing our very best to put the fires out. And then one of my friends who follows me on my Sunday night show, Chatters Live, he brought it to my attention that trees actually breathe in dioxide. So when the trees are burning, right, that's what's being omitted into the air. And he says maybe they're not struggling so much. still they might not be understanding what's going on. So I just kind of, wanted to make sure, just in case, because I don't speak that language, right? I don't speak tree. And, I don't know who I am to think that the trees speak Cindy. But it's the feeling and it's the heart and it's the intent lots of times. And, I don't think that we connect that way as much as possibly we might have, you know, 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago, right? For a long time. Humans have been around for a long time. And, if you really go back into history, if you like history, you would see that, in a lot of religious and spiritual ideas, Mother Nature or nature itself is very honored and it is worshipped in some religions. I don't worship Mother Nature, but I sure do appreciate it. I send my gratefulnesses out there, and today I was throwing some extra gratefulnesses out there for Mother Nature because, well, I connected with one of my sisters. We've been kind of um, reselling. Reselling is, and we're getting good deals at thrift stores and stuff, and we're right hiking the price out because we know the value of our stock, and we're selling it on eBay or selling it on marketplace. I just sold a pair of market boots. We spent a lot for them, $30, but we got $90 for them. So it was like a $60 profit on that. But we get lots of neat things that, we do really, really well on. My sister actually put $150 into my savings. She holds a little account, and this reselling that we do in purchasing from thrift stores or yard sales, wherever it is that we grab these things, that whatever I earn, right? We after the cost, we split the funds, and during the course of the year, we have a little account for Cindy and an account for my sister too. She bought a new car, right? And a beautiful little car. But for me, my little cut is for my trip every September. When I first quit that job that was putting the roof over my head, about 2 months into quitting that job, I went and I took a little bit of a withdrawal out of that to catch up on my house bills. Well, I thought maybe I might not have enough for my trip. And you guys know who hang out with me how important these trips are for me emotionally, physically, and mentally. They're very important to me. But, in the situation, you know, life is what happens to us while we're making other plans. I thought maybe it would be a little bit selfish considering, my sister's in the hospital. She's doing much better today. I walked in to the ICU. I went just to see her for a few minutes. She didn't want any visitors, and I perfectly understand that. And she just wanted to kind of struggle through her day on her own. Um, but what was I going to say about that? I didn't think that it would be fair, because of this operation and the recovery. And, her life is pretty much sucking at the moment. And we didn't know when actually she was going to be able to go in and have this operation. Hello, Eugene. Hello, Dave. Uh, he says, I do love trees, but I don't like poplars. One poplar can spread out to hundreds and take over everything. Same as sumacs. Oh, really? I don't really look at trees that way. I guess maybe in Manitoba we have such a large mixture of trees, and I don't know, I never took into consideration how trees could spread like that, but I would guess that it would be too much if you just had one kind of tree, right? But my sister, right, she just had her operation. She had a triple bypass. She was supposed to have a quadruple bypass, heart bypass, but turned out she just needed a triple. She came out of that operation with flying colors, right? So the doctors and the nurses say. If you asked her, she would tell a different story, right? She didn't want any visitors. She just wanted to struggle on her own. I walked over to the hospital. I go for walks every single day. And, I just switch up my routine a little bit, because I am walking to the hospital and walking home. But today it was really relieving, emotionally and mentally. I found I was very emotional when I first saw my sister. Right, she didn't look so great. But, after talking to the nurses and doctors, what she's going through in this moment. I mean, she just had this surgery yesterday, right? She's still in the ICU, the intensive care unit, and she'll probably go into a regular room tomorrow or the next day. And that's a good sign. And that was actually a sign for me in that relief, right? And that release of emotions. I was holding it in, only because I haven't shed a tear in a couple of years now, and I used to be such a crybaby over anything, a sad song, a sad story, anything, a book, Little House on the Prairie, right? Like, I am one of these. And I was thinking, maybe I had hardened up over the past few years or something, because I find that just a little bit, I'm going to say, emotionally a little bit more balanced, and I'm not purposely trying to hide my feelings. It's right, it's just genuinely maybe having a better understanding, maybe, you know, taking a lot of that negative out of my life and having a few lessons along my belt that I don't feel like I need to, you know, go as wiry and allow myself to be triggered the way I used to, being able to set up some boundaries and stuff for myself, that I've been feeling a little bit better emotionally. But, right, I did take note that I haven't been crying. And, tears and emotions are so important to our emotional well being, whether they're positive or negative. And we should never like choke on them. We never should shut them down or not allow ourselves the permission to become emotional. And when it comes to emotions, we can be all over the place. And I'm not really particular, right? As long as they're not super negative, right? You can't help it. Life is what happens to us while we're making other plans. But to have that recognition, because I saw my sister and I just kind of, I wanted to be strong for her and stuff, but I just kind of like burst into tears. And I'm not a big fan of the hospitals. They make me a little bit wiry also. And I found it probably that I was trying to be a little bit stronger than really what I was. And in that relief, in the nurses and the doctors saying that my sister is on the road to recovery, like really well, that, I was so happy and I was so relieved. And right, a little bit of those emotions that I guess that I had bottled up, I had canned, I had choked on a little bit. without realizing it kind of came to the surface today. And, those emotions, I forgot how exhausting it is to have those um, varying and extreme emotions, whether it's crying or anger or frustration, even fear. Oh my goodness. I saw a couple of Instagram posts this week, and they're just going off just normal, and you're waiting for them to get to the point that all of a sudden a scary face just pops up onto the screen. I'm just like, like this with little heart attacks and that, right? So I haven't been spending a lot of time on the social media for my own entertainment in any way. I have been taking lessons, but when I got home today, I got a hold of my sister who's holding on to that little funds for me, and I thought, oh, right, it's just going to go towards my bills. My bills are falling behind again. I got to get them paid, so we're going to dip into that kitty again. And I came to the acceptance that I wasn't going to go on this Ontario provincial park tour this year just because, I haven't been working physically, putting a roof over my head, paycheck for 5 months now. Um, and I guess felt that I wasn't deserving of it. But in that release and that relief of my sister doing a lot better, finally getting that life saving operation that she so desperately need, and that release of myself of all those pent up emotions. I guess I was trying to just be a little bit stronger than really what I was, and whether I was doing that for my sisters or I was doing that for my sister who actually had the operation, or maybe it was uh, just for myself to say, hey, right, I can take this. I got the lessons now. I don't need to break down every 5 minutes. But I come to the realization after all of that just kind of flooded out, like just the gates, like that it was one of those um, glaciers, right? With the water being blocked, and the glacier is like the wall that's holding the water behind, and it breaks and the water rushes through, and that's what it felt like with all these emotions coming out of me. And I decided to phone my sister and finally get a tally at where I'm at. You guys know, hung out with me for any length of time. I've actually had a garage sale, and I sold just tons of stuff, right? Because I was at that job for 5 years and I got some amazing scores. Um, but I gave my sister a few $100s to add to the kitty, and so I thought, well, I better inquire because I'm going to have to pay my bills, right? Somehow. And I haven't been selling a lot of things lately. But I have been selling a few things with my sister online. And I asked her, can I get a little bit of a tally? And she says, do you want me to pay you out? And I says, no, I don't want you to pay me out. I'm going to need, I told her how much I needed for my house bills, but just hold on to the rest. Because if I could just make even a little holiday, I sure could use it. And she got back to me. She goes, well, I'm not home right now, but I did add a little bit to the pool this morning. And I think possibly you might be at $1,600. I went, oh my goodness. Like, are you serious? I've got that much? She goes, I think so. I can't say for sure. So it'll be tomorrow when I find out exactly how much I have. And I asked her, I says, I know you offered to lend me the car when she's going to Disneyland um, on the 2020, on the 14th. The 14th. Anyway, she's going to Disneyland and she said I could use the car. And I offered her $1,000 for the car for 8 days. And she said, no problem. Yeah, I'm great. And it's going to be safe. This way, it's not sitting in the back of her parking lot for somebody to break the windows or steal it or something, right? And she says, "No problem. You can have the car." And then when she says, "Well, you got maybe $1,600," I just went, "Are you kidding me? Like I can pay my bills, and I know there's some extra money coming in, right? A couple of months down the road that I'll be able to cover all my bills again. So I'm probably good until after Christmas, and there would still be enough if she would take a little bit less than $1,000 for the car. So just think about it, right? And and you'll have some extra money for your trip to Disneyland, and I'll be able to make a little holiday. Now, I'm not going to do 12 provincial parks like I did last year, but I'm going to do 3 parks, and I'm just going to do a couple of days at 2 of them, and I'm going to do 3 days at another one because I also like to go digging for crystals. You guys all know I'm going to want to go to Thunder Bay and go digging for crystals. And so today, after I got home from the hospital, I just went right into right working on my trip, a trip that I haven't worked on at all. Like I said, I didn't think I was going to be able to take a trip because I couldn't afford it. Plus, my sister was having an operation, and who knows when she was going to have the operation and how well it would do. So everything was just all up in the air. And I grabbed, my dad's sign. This was a sign that my dad had beside his bed. It says, "Life is what happens to us while we're making other plans." I wasn't making any plans because I didn't want to feel selfish when so much hairy scary was going on in the lives of the people that I cared for. Also, even in my own life, I have to like make sure that I include myself in that equation, right? That I couldn't afford, and it was heartbreaking. And I didn't say anything to anybody, and I was just kind of choking on that too and feeling bad, right? Because I love my trip. I haven't missed a camping season, whether I was camping here in Manitoba or if I was going to Ontario, which you guys know I absolutely love Ontario. And I've been doing these provincial park tours, and also contributing to Google Maps because I am a Google Maps guide, and I am one of the top 10 provincial reviewers, Google reviewer for provincial parks. And I wasn't going to be able to contribute this year. I was kind of sad about it, but you guys do hang out with me and have been hanging out. You know, I haven't been talking about it, right? Because I really didn't think I was going to be able to manage that this year. Today, I thought, you know what? You got to put that action into it, Cindy. And also, you can't just be miserable about not being able to go because you don't even know if you're not able to go. You don't know until you try to go. So that's what I did today. And it looks like maybe, right? I'll be able to go on this trip. I do believe, I'm trying to think of the dates. I think it's September 14th. I think it's just under a month, you guys, that I'm going on this trip for a week. I'm still going for a week. But last year I went for 2 weeks, but that was a big trip. I had a good job. I was making good money. I had a really nice vehicle for the trip. I got a nice vehicle for this trip too, but I'm going to be camping. I fixed my pop up tent, and And yeah, I want to be really, really comfortable when I go camping. And it wasn't so comfortable last year, sleeping in the truck, especially when it's raining and you have to get up in the middle of the night with the fix the awnings and stuff. That I thought this year I would use my pop up tent. I have a really good tent, and I know I'll sleep a whole lot better if I'm in the tent on my mattresses. It'll be much more spacious for me for sure. And right, it'll be easy for me. Last year I was constantly losing my phones and my charges. Oh, they were in the vehicle, but my vehicle was so packed it could have been anywheres, right? So it'll help me also to keep track of my stuff because I had a couple of hairy, scary moments last year. But anyway, it looks like I'm going to do 3 provincial parks. Plus, I'll be mining for my amethyst. I'll be doing quite a bit of filming, and I have a couple of different places that I have really neat walking trails. So um, I can't say in the moment where I'm going, but they're parks I've not been to before. Yeah, I haven't been to these provincial parks. I tried to go to one time, but it was packed, so I just kind of drove through it in the middle of the night because of course I got there after dark, but I didn't really get to see that provincial park. So this time, I'm going to be booking 3 different parks. I'll be staying 2 nights, right, to spend some quality time in the parks. Because last year I did 12 provincial parks in 13 days. It was too much. It took a lot of the joy of the trip. It was still a challenge, that entrepreneur in me, right? That motivation and inspiration. I took it on as a challenge to get the job done, and I got it. I got it done. But I know it would have been a lot more enjoyable, and I would have had uh, I think more park adventures instead of road adventures if I had stayed a couple of days in each one of those parks. So today I was back in the planning. Went in, checked to see if the camp spots that I had chosen were still available for me because I did that a couple of months ago, thinking there was a small possibility, but haven't checked since, haven't worked on it since. And they were all available. So I picked out my 2 favorite camp spots from each one of those campgrounds that I've chosen. And if they're still available, I suspect that I will book my spots in the next couple of days because, right, if I am going on this trip, that I'll book them in the next couple of days because it is moving towards what I want and to be able to achieve my goals. It would mean that the only goal that I didn't achieve this year would have been my new desktop computer. It's still on. Right. It will work its way out, just like, that dental was on my goal list this year. Mind you, I only estimated it to cost me $650 is what the budget was that I allowed myself, and it ended up being more than double that. So I am grateful that Canada got on the, well, let all the citizens that make under $90,000 able to apply for a dental plan. We don't just have medical plans now that are covered by the government. We now have dental plans too. So I thought that was pretty amazing. I took full advantage of that. Super grateful. Nice teeth, nice teeth again. No chip. gone, right? And I worked with that chip for almost a year because I broke it on last year's trip. I chipped that tooth. So today I was working on my trip. I took the two best campsites of each provincial park and marked them down, marked my dates down. I took away one of the provincial parks that I was going to visit, but I am going to visit other provincial parks. I'm just not going to be staying in them, right? I am only booking for staying in three different provincial parks, but I'm good with that because I didn't even expect that I was going to get my holiday this year. I'm calling. Right. It is work too, right? Because it is in creating content because I don't only explore the inside, I explore the outside. And that was almost sacrificed. And I would have gladly, right, sacrificed that and done it gratefully too if it meant that, I could spend time with my sisters, that I was there for my family when they needed me, right? So today, if you were my series, I've been doing them for years. You can go onto my main channel and find them. They are Ontario uh, tour trips that I take, and I was going through the YouTube audio library to find music because I only use one track, and then that's the track for the entire series. So I was in there. I've got 8 of them. We're going to knock them down a little bit more, but it all depends on the footage, doesn't it? It all depends on the feelings and the emotion and the experience and the adventure of my trip. And I could find this music, but it just might not suit the series. But it's a good start, and in that momentum, right? Because you got to put that work in for what you want, those goals, those dreams, because nothing happens unless you move towards it, right? Lots of times you'll get that wind at your back, or you might get a little bit of support, or, right, a few amazing little gifts that have come along in the path. But for the most part, nothing ever happens unless we move towards that. So I wanted to put that effort in today. And I was super happy that I did because it makes me more convinced, right? Sometimes we need to be inspired and to be motivated. We are only human lots of times, right? I put myself into that state. I had already accepted that I might not be able to go on that trip, and it was on my list. And just like I accepted that I wasn't going to be able to get my dental work, which was on my goal list for this year, that I accepted that I wasn't going to get that done. And look at it's all done now. And if I take care of my teeth, I'm never going to go to a dentist again. Well, I have one more appointment, right? They just want to make sure that everything is going good, but everything so far, I'm really happy about it. But you know what? With that little bit of momentum, it's just not happiness for me. But I know, right? It's part of my brand. And you guys know I love my brand. And I love my outdoors. And I look forward so much to these trips that I do every year. And I've been doing these trips for decades now, right? And they do me so, so well, physically, emotionally, and mentally. They're very, very important to me. So grateful to be able to let everybody know that that trip looks like it might be on. But we'll see, right? That wrench, just like my dad's sign here, right? Life is what happens to us while we're making other plans. It could have been a totally different story. It could have been such a sad time that there wouldn't have even been any optimism or any wish to move forward in that. And I would hope that I would have found a way anyway, because, right, Mother Nature definitely is a big part of my healing process, right? It keeps me happy, it keeps me motivated, it keeps me inspired and motivated, and, right, and it contributes to my brand, and it contributes in that relationship I have with people who kind of hang out with me, right? um Dave says, is this your sister from a few years back? You were on her back deck. I hope she is doing well. Yes, that was my sister. That was my sister Tracy. She's a year younger than I am. She had the same condition as my father. They I have no idea why it took them 3 years. She code one like three times this year. But I have no idea. It should have been the very first thing that they checked for, um, when she started having those problems. But yeah, it's the same condition as my father. I think she has a little bit of rheumatoid too, which comes from my mother's side too. I am grateful for my good health. Super grateful. Oh, and she's got diabetes too. Two of my sisters, I think, are kind of. One sister has Tracy has diabetes too, but I have one sister who just has to take pills. She doesn't take the needles. She just takes the pills. But yeah, I'm so grateful for my good health, and I'm going to attribute it to my emotional well-being, even amongst that hairy, scary of experiences. But it's also in the vitamins and in taking care of myself in those choices, right? Sometimes they're difficult choices that we make, but I am grateful for my good health, and I am grateful that my sister, right, she's going to get another, they say 18 years probably minimum. And how fantastic is that? So that happiness today, even though, right, those emotions, and I shed a few tears, I was a little stressed over the whole situation. Um, but in that relief and that happiness, I decided, right, okay, Cindy, you can go back to living your life, right? It's important to support your family, right? You never deny your own, because in the end, that's all you've got. And I recognize that, and I know it to be true. And I know if it was the opposite way and I was the one that was in the hospital, my sister would have been there for me 100%. Any one of my sisters would have been there for me 100%, right? We don't always butt heads properly, but in the end, we do have each other's back, no matter how we struggle in our lives or in those interconnections with each other. And we're all trying to live our own lives, right? My sister's going to Disneyland next month. It's why I get to have the car, right? And yeah, if she lets me have it for the week for $600, I do believe this trip is back on. So I want to stay busy in that, and I want to stay optimistic because it'll cheer me up, right? My sister is not out of the woods yet, but her doctors and her nurses say that she's doing absolutely fantastic, and not to worry, like it's going to be good. right? She just had the operation yesterday. Today was the first day. And when I left the hospital, I sent messages to, we have a little group chat, right? Just to let everybody know Tracy is just not up to uh, guests or visitors today. And I made sure that before I sent that message off, that that truly was what she wanted me to say, right? I didn't want her to think that, I went ahead and I just did that without, because she's all doped up on the painkillers and stuff that they give you, right? So I didn't want her to say, "Why did you do that, Cindy?" Well, because you told me to. So I read back the message to her and I says, "I'm going to send it off now. Are you good to it?" And she goes, "Yeah." And I just made my visit very, very short. I was only there for 5 or 10 minutes at the max because she made it very clear that she did not want to have any visitors. She was not feeling good. And right, her nurses were surprised that she still wasn't feeling a little bit better, but that not feeling better, right? It's just not physical, right? It's emotional. And my sister does not like hospitals. She doesn't like nurses and doctors and needles and medicine and pain. And she doesn't like anything about it, right? So we're just going to get her better, get her back on her feet, get her home. Once she's home, she'll tolerate the little bit of discomfort, but she'll feel a lot better, right? That anxiety will ease up for her. And we talked a little bit about it yesterday. We all have things. I actually talked about it today because when I went to the hospital to visit her, there was a lady standing up at the elevator, and she goes, "Oh, are you going up?" I says, "Yeah, I'm going up." She goes, "Oh my goodness." And you could just see the relief come off of her. So I knew she had a problem with the elevator. And going up the elevator, I actually had to stop the elevator as she was getting off because we were having to finish our conversation. And she told me how she had this terrible fear of elevators because she actually got stuck in one when she was a young teenager, and she panicked and it was scary and carried on to her adulthood. And I said, "No worries." I says, "We all have those fears. We all have fears of something. For me, it's swinging heights, right? You go to the exhibitions, to the rides and stuff, and that ride with the chain, and it's just got like a swing seat on it with a little belt that goes across. Oh my goodness, stick me on the biggest crickety roller coaster in the world. I would much rather go on that than to go on, right, that little carousel of swings that kind of fly in the sky when it twirls around because I'm so sorry, you guys. Swinging heights are so scary for me." And we were finishing the conversation. She says, "Oh, thank you so much for riding the elevator up for me." Right? We all have fears. And my fear might seem unreasonable. And I have a few of them. Remember what I said as a teenager? I had a problem with needles, right? I would fight to the dickens not to get a needle. And I was talking about the trick or treating. I didn't like knocking on strangers' door, and these experiences do come from our childhood, right? And that particular one came from having to knock on people's doors when my mother was a Jehovah Witness, and we had to, right, try and convince people to have chit chats. And my mother would be on one side of the street, and us kids would be on the other side of the street. And we'd yell to her if somebody said yes, and she'd come running across the street with my baby sister at the time. And right, we'd sit around a table or something, and we would chit chat about Jehovah Witness stuff. Right, it's been a very, very long time. I was very young. uh, Really, basically, the only thing I remember is they had magnificent Bible books, like the pictures in the Bible books and the easy reading and understanding of the Bible stories. Yeah, there are good points about all kinds of religions, and because I'm not particular about that, because I do believe it takes all kinds to make the world, and that would include different spiritual and religious ideas. It would, right? I would want to exclude anybody because we look at the idea of God differently, or right? I move with my values, and my values are my goalposts. My values are my they're my finish line signs. They're my street signs. They're my stop signs, right? And they serve me so well. They are some of those major tools on my belt, right? On my tool belt. And I'm so grateful for those, you guys. I am exhausted today. It has been a very long day. Let me have a little sip of my coffee. And just going to grab a card tonight, go into it for a few minutes. This is what I've been doing the past couple of days because it has been a little bit of a mixed up few days. But, things are falling into place, not just for me, but for all my sisters, little bonuses and little miracles and little gifts for themselves going on. So it's not just in what's going on in my life, but also what's going on in the people that I care about too. In this moment, it is a time of movement. But like I said, if you don't move towards it, right, it's just not gonna happen. No matter what, right? My sister got on the same dental plan as I did, so she got some dental work done. My other sister, she got to have her surgery. Another sister, she went to the casino and she won $1,000 almost. And yeah, it was a little bonus week for all of us girls, right? Just to kind of lighten the heaviness of the week, right? And it was a heavy week, but the little goodnesses that come about, and I try to, right, keep that goodness in my life too during the process. And even when I broke down a little bit this morning, I broke down a little bit yesterday during the waiting for the surgery to be over too. But I'm looking at that as a good sign because I was kind of even thinking maybe I was hardening up, right? That not that I was becoming cold, but that I was maybe becoming indifferent, and that is not the case, right? I had just detached myself a little bit from some of those heavy situations. But it's all in our attitude, right? It's all in our attitude. Um, I'm just gonna make sure that I just pull out my notifications here. Okay, you guys. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Eugene, for popping into my live tonight. For those of you who pop into my live show tomorrow, most people they take it as the podcast, and right, because I just go in that flow and I just don't stop. I don't know, right, how I'm able to do that. It's right. It's not like it's professionally or well packaged or put together, but it is honest and it is genuine. And I think for most people, it is in that relationship that we have when you come in and spend time with me, that you're actually spending time with me, right? Of course, the lessons are kind of mixed in the conversations and that what is uh, it's kind of like I refer to it like, if you were homeless and you went to the soup kitchen, if you went to the Salvation Army for dinner, you would sit in the pews and you would hear a little bit about Jesus before they fed you, right? And it's kind of that same way, right? right? I'm not feeding you guys dinner or anything like that, but it is in the ability to mix the lessons that I come across, the lessons that come across my path, what I resonate with, those experiences though that I have, the conversations that I have, and in the sharing of my life. And it is in my optimistic idea that it will build a connection, it will build a bridge that, right, is built on trust, right? And once we're across the bridge, right, that when we were once on opposite sides and now we're on the same side, that maybe we could better get along with each other, right? That we could better move and we could better be the evidence to others that it can be done, right? And we build that trust and we have that understanding that that trust is mutual values, right? Understanding it takes all kinds to make the world, and I swear all kinds hang out with me, right? Yeah, it was the Christians this week. I'm going to just toot their horns. I'm so grateful that they care for me, that they're actually, they do care for me. They treat me like friends in my personal life and online. They've been praying for my sister and sending me good cheer and writing me letters and right. And that's what it's all about, right? That we could all be so different from each other and yet not really, right? Because we're all connected, just like those trees that I was talking about, and those root systems that as humans and as a network in ourselves, that we're all intertwined with each other. So in my experience, right, grateful. And it's not like misery loves company. That's not the case, right? That's never asked for. But when it's offered or just done without me noticing, that's or acknowledging, that's everything. That's everything, right? And so, yeah, if you don't have values, right, take a few lessons. Lots of thought leadership out there is on boundaries, and it's something that everybody needs. And if you're anything like me, highly sensitive or empathic, like you really should have walls of values, right? So that you can truly see who's crossing the line, right? Because if you don't have any boundaries, others are just going to walk all over that. And that's the truth. Okay, you guys, let's just grab a card here. We're just going to go into it for a couple of minutes, and then I'm going to call. You know what? Let's just take that card, whatever that card is that I just dropped on the floor. That's the card we're going to take. Give me 1 second. The word we got, oh my goodness, this is just perfect for today. We got the word community. Community offers up a sense of belonging. What were we just talking about? My community of my sisters and my close friends, and that community of Christians who have been praying for my sisters. I send out the good cheer, and I've been talking to whoever or whatever, but putting my thumb on a specific religious idea. It's not that I will never do that. It's just in the moment. That's not where I'm standing. That's not where my belief is. That's not where, right? That's not where I'm making my movement. But it's not that I don't have communities either, right? I got you guys. I got you guys. I got my sisters. Up until recently, I had all my coworkers, right? All my customers, right? And when whoever or whatever takes away, it's always replaced with something different. And more often than not, something better, right? I haven't lost my communities to the extent that I think that I would never be able to connect with them again, because most definitely, because when I connect, I'm connecting for the long haul, right? So again, I'm going to say so grateful for the people that have been hanging out with me all these years, right? Dave's been with me for years, right? Probably pretty close to that 10 years, because, yes, I have been on YouTube. I have been a part of that YouTube community, right, for over 10 years now. This past September, no, this past January was my 10-year anniversary. And you guys know what? I'm here 6 days a week. And next month, we're going to have another provincial park tour, right? Three parts, three provincial parks. But right, it's still going to be 8 days of content, and it's really going to be amazing. And also, as a Google guide with Google Maps, I'll be able to contribute there with my pictures and my reviews of the parks and of the roadways and of the different stops that I make along the way. It's going to be amazing, right? I feel things moving in a positive way for sure, but I would never deny my own, right? Because in the end, that's all I've got. But it doesn't mean it has to be one community, right? I can be a part of many communities, and